Welcome back to another Design League playthrough, and as you can see we are going for the really fantasy look with this one. This is from bradyg, clearly contained inside his 800 by 350 area. There's some really cool stuff here. I love the rock work you've done. The one thing that leaps out straight away is these sorts of vertical cliffs are really tough to do, and raising it this high is just nigh on impossible. Particularly these sort of stalactite things, I just don't think look great, and you get a lot of land tearing here. There are some tutorials on cliffs out there. Honestly, some of them are game limitations, but yeah, I think you can get there with a bit more practice. And actually, where you've got it about here, you see how this area is a little bit greener. Just going down in smaller moves will make a big difference. So if we were to zoom all the way down here, I suspect this sort of stuff is great. But the problem is also you're going so high up, it's just nigh on impossible to do that. But like where you've got it here, that's about what you're aiming for, and will look really, really good. But yeah, cliffs are really difficult, and it's a shame because everyone wants to do them, and yet they are just tough. Now we're starting all the way out here. We're not going to question how we get up here. That's not part of the game. We're also not going to question whether you would die falling off this bit. That's also not part of it. I'm not sure about the little hazards in here, and I am already scared at hitting to some of these fairways with bunkers, and we'll see how this goes. I've got a feeling my score will be quite high here. So let's leap into it. Okay, well mercifully the first one is not hitting to that fairway with centerline bunkers. Now, let's have a look. I think spline work we can clean up just a bit. So working, you see how this corner is very tight. I'd probably add another spline in here where it's a bit more curved, and it will just smooth that out. I worry that hitting driver is going to push me over the edge, which means I think we drop back to 3 wood. And we're going to be reloading, I think. Oh no, we're okay. Amazing. The sunken mesquites are a really good look, actually. They work well. See, you knew the game wanted me to hit to the fairway that is... I will say that this fairway is pretty much all unusable. You're just not providing enough space, and if you're hitting to this fairway, you're generally doing what I'm doing, which is recovering and bailing out of heavy rough. If you'd hit the fairway here, you can go for the green, which is by a mile the least protected area of fairway, like hitting to here, even if there's all these bunkers around here. Whereas this fairway, I mean, I've got no hope of hitting and holding any of it. And to add into the chasm and rocks on the other side, it's just there's no good shot here. And I've hit a bad tee shot, but the punishment for that should be that you're just further away from the green and life gets more difficult generally, rather than you're just hacking out and hoping. I do like these rocks though. I think you've chosen them really nicely, the ones that are slightly moss covered. I think that works well. I am by no means saying that I've played this hole well, but I think you'd want to provide a little bit more help to the player who's just erred on a tee shot. Green could use a little bit more slope, I'd say, for a par 5, or be a bit smaller, either or. Up to you. Bunkers aren't too bad at all. Like, they could use a little bit more flattening and deepening in the middle, just to make them kind of go down a bit more and then shallow out at the bottom for where the bunker pan is. But good, and I like your little clusters either side of the green. I mean, a birdie on that hole would have been an absolute travesty. Alright, second, and we've got a par 3. I mean, great look with the mountains in the back. Kind of wish we'd have had less of the fog, just so you can see the top of the mountains, but personal preference. This is a really good looking par 3. And whilst I might say the ravine you've got, I'd probably try to make it go up and down a little bit. Just the sheer face again like starting at the same height just doesn't look as good in game as it could. But I really like this rock and kind of bushy planting you've done over here. I love the space you've given the par 3. I think your bunker style could be a little bit more consistent perhaps. We've got a lot of big shapes, and just having some sort of really cohesive style to hang your hat on would work well. But this is a really good look. Oh my goodness, we've hit a perfect tempo. That's probably going to be the wrong shot now, but hey. Again, I would say that your green is probably a bit big for the slopes you've got on it. Generally, when I'm splining out bunkers, I'll aim for around 95 to 100 yards. When you're kind of splining out, it will give you a total yardage. As a starting point, these are probably about 100, I guess 120, 130, which can work really well, but you need to provide a lot more slopes to make them not play flat. See, this is a good balance of slopes and green size. I think this is your best green so far, for sure. And I like the shape. It's not one I tend to use, like the kind of wider at front than at back as much. Okay, so drivable, and then it has you question whether. So I mean, there's definitely risk left, definitely risk right. But I do think also if I'm laying up, there's probably the same amount of risk, particularly if I'm going to 3-wood. Generally, I'd want to see driver being your most risky, then 3-wood being slightly less risky, slightly less reward, and so forth and so forth. Whereas I think actually 3-wood probably has more risk due to you taking on the narrowest point. So I guess we go for it. I think I've talked myself into it. Again, sightline is good. Like, it's working well. Now, I do worry that, yeah, with the green you've given me, this is not going to be an easy 2-putt. And I like that this is how you've done it, and you haven't gone for loads of red slopes that would have pushed the ball down to here and we have a straightforward putt and what have you. The orange is a good way of doing it. I mean, who knows whether that's any good. Ah, it's a pretty scary putt. Just notice green speeds. You've left them at default, so 144 is like whatever the green will give you. If you go into course settings and then go to green, you can change that slider up from 6.5 somewhere around the set, like the 7, like 7.2 or so. So that those are saying around like 160 to 170 is for this sort of course would work well. Another really good sightline. I hate the way the flyover cam does that. Again, like I think ramp up the risk with driver. I guess we've got those bunkers a bit more in play, but I think a common theme on this one. Oh, we're going to hit a rock. Where are we going? Common theme on this one would be to provide a kind of like what if you miss. So again, these bunkers make it. If I'm hitting and holding this fairway coming out of the heavy rough, it's just purely by luck rather than judgment. Yeah, luck. Yeah, just I like the bunkering you've done where it's around the edges of the fairways and greens. Like this string works, this string works, this string works. These just feel really disjointed and don't fit the rest of the hole. Yeah, another green where I think this one you've got the sloping and sizing absolutely right. That's too much. Ooh, come down the slope. Okay, got away with one. And got away with a poor putt. Ah, 3 under, and I am surprised. I think this does play a lot easier than it looks, thankfully. Okay, routing wise, don't know if I love you walking really high all the way up here to hit back down. I think we can probably come up with a neater solution of getting you from green to tee to walking back down. I know we're in fantasy territory very strongly, but like, the principle of trying to put greens and tees pretty close together is one that I believe holds true no matter what course you're building. Hopefully the wind will push that back. I don't really mind being in the bunkers. Again, this is one of those holes where I feel there was no reason not to take on driver, and actually hitting 3-wood was going to leave me with a more dangerous tee shot. Because I don't really have too much of a problem with hitting a splash out of a bunker. And I guess that's a common gameplay note. Making bunkers that penal is really difficult, and generally you have to use a combination of bunker and pin position and slope around the pin, and it's just not worth it. But just be aware that bunkers aren't really that punitive. Okay, and we finish up with a par 3 with a fun little spine in the middle that I think is going to give you some really interesting pins. I would hope you haven't put one on top of it, but one here is good, one here would be good. To be honest, I'd probably be moving, like trying to get it so that the spine is more narrow and taking up less space, so rather than going from here to here, keep the same concept but go from here to here, and then you create a pin behind it and more of a space around it as well. This pin is good. I do feel the par 3s you've got are a little similar in length. In fact, let's check the scorecard. I feel like they might be exactly identical. Oh, 180, 200, maybe not. I think perhaps it's just the wind I've got them. That I am hitting basically the same club. That's an awful shot. But still, we've managed a round without going over the cliffs, which is, or in one of the ravines, which is way more than I thought I'd get. We'll end up with a bogey on the par 3, but that's okay. Oh, what a tease. So yeah, there we go. A really interesting publish, and there's lots to like there. I think quite a few of these things are just, you're finding your way and you've gone really bold, and there's a lot of good there. I really like the rock work. I thought some of your bunker placement was great, some of the green slopes were great, but understandably with a newer designer it's kind of hit and miss because you're finding where the level is and what you should be working towards, and hopefully this points you in some of those directions. Best of luck and keep designing.